Hey everyone, this is Ole Sharanki from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS podcast.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome one and all to EduSteps, the online mentoring podcast powered by Laddering Your Success. I'm Ole Sharanki, co-founder of Laddering Your Success, and I'm honored as always to be joined by my fellow co-founder and LYS creator, Festus Samoye. Festus, how you doing today, brother?
Doing very, very well. It's good to be here. It's good to be back. It's good to impact lives. It's good. It's just good. It's good. Everything's all good.
Well, yeah, the name of the game is consistency. That's one of the biggest things I've learned. And when you're going on that path, on that track, the consistency is a key in making those steps. You know, Festus was telling me, hey man, we got some people watching us. And, I just had a thought right now. It's like, they've been watching us. They've been watching us. We just now seeing that they're watching us. So for those of you who have been watching us, liking us, but like not physically like clicking a button and liking us, just liking us inside, we appreciate you. Now, what we want you to do is we want you to take that energy from inside and use it with your fingers and hit that like and subscribe button so you can let the algorithm know that we're actually making an impact. Or not, it's up to you. But either way, we're much appreciative of those of you who are taking in and learning from what we're doing. All right. And we just had another joiner come and join us, the one and only DCH. I'm about to say Clayton Bigsby.
Bro, that's why I thought because I only know one other Clayton, so I was like, man,
the one, the only, that guy, that dude, Daniel Hill. How you doing today, my brother?
I'm good, man. Appreciate for the invite. But you're right, man. And then people need to physically press the button. Because when they complain about they can't see it, it's because they don't know what people will complain to me about my stuff I post. They say, hey, man, where your post at? I was like, man, y'all know if you don't click the button, it stops showing you my post. So if they wondering why they can't get the LYS information that they get every week, the last week before, and they be like, hey, what happened to y'all? It's because y'all not clicking that like button, so the algorithm ain't showing them. Stop clicking on Ratchet and click on Education.
I love it. Stop clicking on you should put that on a shirt. Stop clicking on that Ratchet. Click on that LYS. Get on that Education. Excuse me. So you know what? When you were talking, Dan, you actually reminded me of something my dad said. He taught me a lesson years ago, and it stuck with me ever since he told it to me. I think it was right around the time I was graduating high school, starting college. He asked me if I was going to vote. And my parents immigrated here from Nigeria in the 80s. They are naturalized or they're legal residents, but they're not citizens, so they can't vote. And I remember my dad saying, are you going to vote? Asked me if I was going to vote. I was like, nah, I don't know. Yeah, I was just kind of like. And so a couple weeks later, something happened on the news. And I was like, why would they do that? I was like just talking, that doesn't make any sense. And my dad said, look, if you don't vote, please don't come into my house and complain when things happen around you that you don't like.
Dang.
And right when he said it's a seed that was planted, it started growing immediately. Because I want to, if you break it down for me like that, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to complain about everything. So I'm just going to start, vote on the vote. But it was so powerful. And that's one of the things I know for young people, we look out there, and I'm going to get started, but I don't know. It just hit me to talk about this, especially for young people. It seems like your vote doesn't matter. It seems like it's just a menial task. It's just this thing. It's just, the whole thing is just weird. You got to go into this thing. It's like you're taking a test standing up. But there is so much power in elections, especially local elections. There's so much that impacts us. And just huge shout out to A-Leaf Votes. Huge shout out to Councilwoman Tiffany Thomas. Huge shout out to Isaac Agia, District F, the West Side, A-Leaf Super Neighborhood Council, all the wonderful things that they're doing with getting these young people involved and aware of civic duty and just taking care of your community. So yeah, I guess that's our vote message. Our get out and vote. Remember back in the day, Festus, we had to rock the vote.
No Diddy.
Yeah, no Diddy. See, you know what? It was the first thing that came in my mind.
Bad boy, baby. But anyway, no, but that's the thing. I think what you're saying is so true and so powerful about civic engagement, getting involved, really trying to understand what's going on. To me, it's interesting to me I try to listen to both sides because to me, I view myself as an independent. I'm probably more of a conservative independent because I think when you let the cat out the bag, it's hard to put it back in. And so it's better to be conservative in your approach than just to let anything go and suffer certain consequences, especially when there's a lot of literature and research out there. And so long story short, you look at these most recent issues and it was brought up that, hey, a former president actually negotiated with a group that otherwise our government didn't recognize, didn't talk with. And I said, wow, that's interesting because that was a change of direction in policy. In 20 years of policy, it was a change of direction. And so the thing is, that was interesting to me was my question became, well, what was the result of that change of policy, right? And so when you're civically engaged and you start asking these different questions, even of yourself, so that you could just understand, like sometimes you could just ask yourself like, okay, what do I think about this? Why do I think this way? Those different types of questions. It resulted that fewer people died because of that change in policy. So to me, if we're going to talk about, human life and the value of human life and those different types of things, isn't less death better than more death? You know what I mean? And so this is where you have to start saying, okay, based off of that, who am I going to vote for? Based off of what I've seen, based off of what I believe, based off what I agree in, who am I going to vote for? What am I going to vote for? When you see certain things happening in your neighborhood, you gotta pay attention to the policies, who's implementing what policies, both good and bad. You can't just be like, oh, bad. You got to look at the good. And again, like you said, shout out to District F. I love seeing their social media, how they're out in the community, they're engaged. It's been like that. It's the most engaged council person I've seen ever, just to be honest, and I think that's really powerful. So
embodiment of we outside, the most full embodiment of being outside that I've seen. So absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's conversation. Today, we are still on the theme of future of technology 2025 and beyond. All right. So we talked about things like DEI. Gosh, what else have we talked about? We had DEI. We had impact of COVID. So today, what we're going to be talking about is going to be talking about technological integration. What does that look like? What has it looked like? Primarily since COVID, we can talk about a little bit before COVID, but primarily since COVID, that's when it became almost like a necessity, right? That laptop for a lot of kids was a necessity. The MiFi pack was a necessity. What does that look like for our kids, for students, 2025 and beyond, right? And this is a great group to talk about it. We got parents, teachers, educators, all the sort going to be discussing this today. So first question I wanted to bring up for everyone is, what are the key challenges that teachers face in integrating technology into their classrooms? If you see them in it, what are the key challenges teachers face in integrating technology into their classroom?
Well, I guess the first thing, a lot of people say these schools are unequal when it comes to technology, and they talking about all the inner city, this and that. Look here, the inner city had technology before the ones on the outskirts. Like, I'll just use here. Katie just now got 1-to-1. You was there when A-Leaf was 1-to-1, huh? Yeah, so yes. They had all that. Yes. So we was 1-to-1. So all that technology, like, oh, they don't have this, they got that. Oh, that's the first thing we got to talk about. And we even met a dude at, I think, one of Festus event where he was like, even the people in the inner city of New York, those schools are $1 million classroom. I think that's what he said, $1 million classroom. But the key thing is blocking certain sites, because the school software blocking does not block like these kids mind. These kids can unblock anything. It's like you got 50 kids in a room. They found a VPN, and they add them VPNs, or they add something, or they found a way, or they go in the back and they technology. They can do all that. They can't add, but they can do all that other stuff. So the main thing is like really just keeping them focused. Because if you keep focused on tasks and making the kids want to learn, then you good. But it's like keeping them on track. Because with pencil and paper, they can't do nothing but work. Technology, they can find the site. So that's the only thing.
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad. Parents, prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to the show because you know it's some good topics.
Yeah, I would say similarly, access is very, very key. Access is important. But my question comes down to desire, right? What do you want to look at online? If you don't have access to, a laptop, computer in the home, then do you have a desire to get to the library to use one? There's so many different things, particularly for major metropolitan cities. I'm not talking about rural areas right now. There's so many options out there. And I think sometimes what happens is there's an overload of options and alternative. And to Daniel's point is like, well, I got the laptop. I'm gonna play Roblox or I'm gonna play Minecraft versus actually having a mind to study or having a mind to look things up. And so I think one of the crystal clear, at least in my view, what I think is going to be the technological difference maker going forward is going to be, do you have clarity of focus and vision in why you're using technology? And if you don't, I think that's what's going to actually help or hinder, or let me say that's what's going to hinder people is that use of technology.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I first saw the question, one of the first things I thought about was we're integrating technology into the classroom. So we got to think about this. Up until about the late 1800s, early 1900s, people were homeschooled. Right around the time of the Industrial Revolution, we said we got to start taking groups of children in mass, bringing them into the classroom so they could learn the basic skills that were necessary to work in a factory, to help push society forward, right? And what we started to see was just this exponential growth as far as technology, innovation, and all the sort. And I think about that today in 2024, going into 2025 and beyond. As we're bringing these kids into the classroom, what is the goal? What are we preparing them for, right? That should kind of be the foundation for everything that we do. And of course, it's 2024. It has to be catered around technology because it's going to be an essential part of your future. I mean, it's all the way from if you're a gardener to, so if you're working in farming, if you're working in construction, all the jobs that we have always thought to be major, labor jobs, they're still very labor intensive, but there's going to be a certain aspect of technology that makes that job more efficient. So is the goal now to create students that are innovative, that are, and this is why the theme, the key word that you've heard a lot of educators bring up is critical thinking, which is essentially problem solving, right? Creative problem solving. Do we want our kids to be able to use that technology as a tool to be able to solve the major issues that they will be facing while still understanding the system wherein they live in, right? So that's one thing. That's one way of looking at it. Now, I think the major issue that we've got to deal with is you have kids, I think a lot more in the inner cities who went their first introduction into technology is going to be an iPad or a cell phone or a TV, a smart TV or something. And it's almost like giving a kid, a weapon, right? If you give a kid a weapon, they don't know how to use it. And they can very easily harm themselves, which is what's happening, right? They're harming themselves mentally, which are leading to social issues, interpersonal issues, emotional issues. The list goes on and on. So I was watching a really good video about this. And the gentleman said, would you want to have a 4-year-old with that weapon? Or would you rather have someone who's in high school or in college with that weapon? So they're a little bit high, their ability to be able to understand the pros and cons of this instrument, this weapon, the benefits of it, see some examples of how it can be used properly, see some examples of how it can be used improperly, and what are the effects of those things. You got to lay those things out very clearly. And that, I think, those are going to be the major issues that we deal with as we try to integrate technology. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to take years and years. Just think about history, right? The further we go on, the longer history goes. So we're going out of the group activity. Here are some worksheets, kind of work with this, kind of work with that. And now we're saying, hey, create these projects, use these innovative tools to do this and to do that, which is great. At the same time, I as an educator, I also understand that there is a very unique connection between pen and paper. When a student is able to write down their notes, there's a really amazing connection that happens between that pen, their eyes, and their brain. They're able to see words that someone is saying, hear it, think about it, put it into paper. Where does that play a role in all of these things? These things that are as humans, it's almost as necessary as humans needing to be socially grouped together, right? We weren't designed to be isolated. We were designed to be together. So there's so many different variables to play in and move in and to maneuver to create the best outcome for kids. And so I think those are just some of the things that come to my mind.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that even though the cost of college can be daunting, the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook can assist you in realizing your dreams. You can identify and apply for scholarships using the information, advice, and resources in our comprehensive guide. Also, we've provided a template for a successful scholarship essay to help you stand out from the crowd. Don't allow student loan debt to control you. Get your copy of the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook right away to take charge of your destiny. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to that fire conversation.
All right. So, second question, let's talk about this. How can schools provide adequate support and training for teachers to use technology effectively? So what can schools do? How can schools provide adequate support and training for teachers to use technology effectively?
So this is a loaded question, and I'm going to say no. And the reason I'm going to say no is that at this point, schools don't even have educators. They have citizens who are willing to try to be educators, but they don't have, we're just not graduating enough people who have education backgrounds, particularly people who have education backgrounds with subject matter experience. And so, if you're going to create a tool to say, hey, this is going to make you a better teacher, you really have to be a teacher first. And the fact that you're kind of just pulling people off the street and saying, hey, teachers now can have a high school diploma, which to a certain degree, that sounds okay. But when you think about the fact that the average high schooler is graduating on 6th grade reading levels, 7th grade reading levels, right? If you're talking about public school, then how are they going to help a person who's in 6th grade reading higher than a 6th grade level? So the thing is, I think, it's sad to say, and I know it just sounds awful, but it's true. Until we better prepare educators to be educators, until we say, hey, listen, before we talk about, hey, how we're going to give you this new lesson plan tool or this new, phonics tool or whatever it is that we're going to give you, that's a piece of technology. Hey, we're going to give this website that you could use for the kid. We need to first know how to teach. And it's funny because, again, with my kids' teachers, I could tell, oh, this person's been teaching for a little bit. You know what I mean? They really know their stuff, versus those who are like, hey, man, I just got here. You know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong. I think that there are different strengths and different weaknesses in individuals. One of the strengths for some teachers is their ability to make the material relatable to life. But then what about those teachers who make the material matter for the sake of the material? We have these planes that are literally falling out of the sky because we don't have good quality mechanics, and we don't have, which is, kind of tradesmen. We don't have skilled tradesmen. And then our engineering is poor. So when you combine those things, it endangers people's lives. And I haven't even got a chance to look into this fully. Look at what they said what happened to Bank of America. Bank of America is one of the largest banks in the world. And, cyber attack, system down, whichever way you want to call it, those things, they matter. So
Absolutely. Very, very good point. I love what you said about we don't have the educators to be able to implement that. So my mind goes a couple different places. There was a study, and this is part of the issue. I've mentioned this once or twice before in our podcast, but I can't remember the name of the theory or the framework that was being described, but it was basically saying if you have someone who's a factory worker, someone who works in a factory, and they're really efficient, they're really, really good at working at that machine. They're able to produce at a rate that is 2, 3, 4 times greater than the average, right? So they're the highest in their area. What they'll do is they'll take that person and they'll say, hey, you're now going to be over this group of people that work in this area. And
yeah, it's called the Peter principle. The Peter principle.
Peter principle. Thank you so much. So what that does now is that takes someone who's very adept, who's very skilled in their work, and now you're saying we're going to put you in charge of this. So that person is now gone. So that efficiency is gone. That high production rate is gone. And now the thought process is, okay, you're really good, so you're going to show these guys how to be really, really good, right? But if you go and you look, that doesn't necessarily equate, right? The person who is really, really creating at a really high rate of production is not able to replicate that with a large group of people. I think the same thing has been happening in education for a very long time. You've got principals who were principals with 3 to 5 years of experience. And that's almost a little different because just because they were teaching for 3 to 5 years does not mean that they were the best teacher. It just means that they got their master's and they were, lucky enough to get in a program and move on and so on and so forth. A lot of times you have really great teachers who are really, really pour into kids. The kids are able to retain that content and hold on to that content. A lot of those kids show mastery in their skills, and they say, hey, you're a rising superstar in our district. We want to move you on up. We think you're doing a bang up job. We're going to move you on up. So they move them on up. And what happens is that set of kids that was doing really well, when a new set comes in, they bring another teacher and it's somewhat good, but maybe it's half as good. Maybe it's half as good. That person is now in charge of maybe creating a framework or a curriculum that's going to trickle down, and the other teachers are going to follow it, right? But all the other teachers in the district, in the school, wherever, don't have that same passion. They're not able to make that same connection as that initial teacher is. That's happening, and teachers are moving all over schools, all over districts, all over cities, all over states, all over the country. And so I'm pretty sure if you get some of those maps that kind of show the rate of teacher movement and school scores or test scores, I can't say for certain, but I would love to see if there's a correlation between those two. So this is kind of where my mind was on, and thanks again, Professor, for that wonderful thing you said there about the teacher. And so this question, I really like this question because we've actually done some things for this, and I've seen some teachers that have done some things for this. How can technology be used to personalize learning experiences for students? How can technology be used to personalize learning experiences for students? Real quick, I'll give you guys an example or a story that came to mind. When I was in the 4th grade, so that means I was about 9 years old, so that was about 1995, 1996, Miss Gray I'll never forget Miss Gray. Miss Gray she was an amazing teacher. Shout out Shadow Oaks Elementary. I was all over the place. So I couldn't sit still. I was boom, like taking a Super Bowl and just throwing it at a wall, just bouncing up and down, bouncing up and down. She figured out that we had those old Apple computers, those Macintosh computers, and there was a game. There was Oregon Trail, there was Number Munchers, and there was another Muncher game. Whenever I was spazzing or going up and down, she would say, "Olenka, go to the computer." So thank you, Steve Jobs. All right, thank you, Steve Wozniacki. Right, so I would go to the computer and I would play Number Munchers, and I still remember till this day. They would have things like factors of 12, multiples of 6, and then they had the random trivia one. So it would be like nuts. So I had the like Brazil nuts, pecans, and all these different. So I would just pour myself into that thing, and I think that's a great example of using technology. Granted, every kid has their own way of doing whatever, but she on the TOS test, which was the state test, I was able to get the highest score you could get on your writing prompt, and it's a credit to her years and years of experience, but also just noticing and saying, hey, this little bit of technology can help him get to a good place. Chris, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's the difference of a person who's a real educator, is not to just say, hey, you're misbehaving, you know what I mean? You have an issue, but to say, hey, this is how I can integrate this because it's going to help this student out. But now when you're putting everybody on that technology to just kind of, again, create this mass market Prussian learning system where you're getting good worker bees, when you really have critical thinking problems that need to be resolved, you're going to run into some issues. And so to me, I think, that example that you gave is a great example of a person that's an educator using that educator skill set to know when to implement technology and how to implement technology.
Absolutely, man. And definitely, man, I love, again, talking about the educators. You have to have the skilled educator. And shout out to the future Dr. Jamar Crawford, who's mentioned this several times. Districts have to invest in creating highly qualified teachers. Something else that I remember Crawford mentioning was highly qualified teachers aren't going to want to stay in a district with a low SES, right? There are certain things that you can think, if it's a low SES, that means you're closer or at or below the poverty line. There's a correlation between behavior, misdiagnosis of certain learning disabilities. I can tell you from personal experience, I've noticed, I think this is across the board, but it's kind of amplified with the learning limitations. There's a lack of accountability. And so as you're dealing with those things, it makes sense, right? Why many educators would want to go to a place where there's not a low SES. It's a higher SES, right? Because there's just a level of understanding that you're more accustomed to dealing with, and you can easily create a connection to benefit the student. So thank you for that point. Great point. Now you mentioned something, and I think we can end with this, because this is, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but just imagine there's worms in here. Let's open up the can of worms. You mentioned something about worker. Earlier, I mentioned that where are we going, right? What is the goal with integrating technology for our students? Is it the 21st century version of worker bees? As we move in this post-industrialized world, what does that look like? Because I think that's a major thing that no one.
Yeah. So what they're calling it now is above the API and below the API. And so what that means is that when you sit back and you look at it, there's a way of integrating websites. There's a way of integrating technology to work together. And it's called the API. And so let's say, for example, somebody, they write some computer code via, like, for example, Zoom. They write this code for Zoom. Well, then somebody else can use what's called the API and write a little code for, how to create the AI, or how to create, change the skin tone on the thumbs up. And what ends up happening is, as you make the product better, you get a little cut of the money from that API. And so sometimes, you know, there's add-on sales. You can say, hey, you can add this on for $1, $2, $10, whatever it is, $30. And that's where a lot of the tech money is being made. And so what ends up happening is a lot of people think, oh, it's about content creation, which, don't get me wrong, it is. But it's also about understanding how this technology is being made and implemented. And so, you know, you have certain AI coming out now to where it's not even so much about learning how to write code anymore. So what does that mean? Okay, understanding computer code in one sense is understanding a different language, right? Python, Ruby on Rails, all this other stuff that they used to talk about. Now, if that language is not necessary anymore, then understanding the language that creates the outcome is going to be the most important thing, right? So can I, and I'll give this example, having a little trouble with my trunk lock, right? So my trunk lock stopped working. I'm like, man, I don't know why my trunk lock's not working. So I watch a couple of YouTube videos and cool, I think I know what to do. So I go out there, take off the trunk lock, come to find out there's some wires that are detached. And so I'm thinking, man, okay, what, you know, I got to take these wires, I got to put these wires back in, but it's not working out. Long story short, it's not working out. So I'm thinking, well, what do I need to do now? I need to find out where I could get more of these wires to attach to the thing, right? I don't know what it's called. So now I'm Google searching, this searching, that searching, and I don't know what it's called. And so because I don't know what it's called, I can't get what I want done. You see what I'm saying? And that's going to be one of the biggest differentiators now and into the future, is that above and below the API. Do I know what I'm trying to get done? And I know what to call it to be able to get the computer to create the outcome that I'm looking for. So yeah, we definitely want to hear from more of the guys. You want to check your volume too?
Okay. Am I good?
You're back.
Okay. I don't know what happened to my deal there. I'm sorry. But yeah, definitely. Crawford, if you're there, Hill, would love to get your thoughts on that.
What was the question one more time?
Sure. How can technology be used to personalize learning experiences for students?
Well, if it's different programs.
No, I'm so sorry. That was not the question. I'm so sorry. So the question was,
There goes America all over again.
It wasn't on my list of questions. So what I was talking to Festus about was, you know, early on in the early stages of the Industrial Revolution, we started taking kids en masse and bringing them in classrooms and teaching them the basic skills that they needed to be able to be a good factory worker, to be able to be good at a trade, to be able to be good just living into society and being a productive member of society, right? As we live in this post-industrial era, what does the integration of technology now look like for students? And so what Festus was mentioning was, he was mentioning those above and below the API. And Festus, when I'm done, if you could just kind of give a brief synopsis on API. I may have missed it because my internet may have been out. And so basically what you're going to have is, it's almost the same thing, but it's just exponentially greater of technology. Those who have a level of understanding of these things, right? Whether it could be an engineering concept, a tech concept, a framework, a system of understanding, and those who don't have that. And obviously those who do are going to have greater access. Those who don't aren't going to have as much access. So my question was, what does the integration of technology look like for students en masse, for all students as we move forward? Does that make sense?
I think maybe a program that specializes in their individual learning needs would be best in regards to, you know, whatever subject, because it can identify whatever the gaps may be there and aggressively address those while tracking the student's progress in those deficient areas.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole once again. You know, these days, many families are busy but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
Yeah, I agree with Crawford said. Matter of fact, when I went to, it was a science thing where this dude he made a software, Indian dude. He been in education all his life. And it was kind of what Crawford was talking about, individual. It'll go from elementary all the way up to high school. But at the same point, like Festus was saying earlier, it's based off the child. Like, we're in America where you have a choice. These other kids ain't got a choice. Like, they know if they don't work hard, then they going to be working hard. You know what I'm saying? It's like, for real, for real. So that's the main thing, something like that, because it needs to be focused on what's best for them. Because a lot of stuff from jobs will be gone with this new AI stuff. You see how websites, when AI first came out, they was trash. You type in trash. Now, bro, they building a whole website. Friends say they do engineering stuff. They just have to type half the code now because they can go in chat GDP unless you work at like NASA. Like my homeboy says, well, you can't even connect to the internet. Like they block all this stuff so they can't get messed up, which is brilliant. You know what I'm saying? So, but they're like Crawford said, but at the end of the day, if they don't want it, they don't want it.
Yeah, and so I think those are really beautiful points. I love the idea of a program that is geared towards students. I think the goal has always been fair across the board. It almost reminds me of Plessy versus Ferguson. I was watching some really good videos about that, and just the beginning of, the beginning of the Jim Crow era and separate but equal. And that theme kind of came to my mind. Can you guys hear me?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. I saw the screen. I was like, uh-oh, did I mess up? And so it reminded me of, as we move on to this next level, there will always be a level of gatekeeping. There will always be a level of folks who want a certain group of people to have access to a certain level of knowledge while keeping others outside of that realm of discovery, if you will. And I think that is also going to be a major issue. And so it kind of goes all the way back to what we talked about in the beginning about young people being really, really vested and focused in their civic duties and just understanding what's going on around them. Because I mentioned a story that my dad told me, if you don't vote, don't complain when things happen around you that you don't like. Festus has something up here about an API. Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to touch on it real quick for edification's sake, especially for those who watch us through to the end. So as you can see, basically you have the end user, right? That's me, you, everybody else. And then you have the actual device itself. And your device is basically sending request and response through to the internet. And the internet, basically, you could have a piece of code right here that acts as an augmentation system to the web server, right? So this is just a piece of code, right? Because everything in the internet is basically floating piece of code. And then it acts as an augmentation system to the web server and then to the database. So basically what it does is when it takes this information, it almost filters it through to say, hey, do this instead of that. And then that way, when you get the request back, it looks different on your end. So a person, you could have 3-4 people view a website and view that website in 3 different ways because of whatever API they're using. So that's the short kind of non-technical answer. And so what does this mean? Regular people out here, me, you, and everybody else can actually make these things. We can make these things. And so now, in short, there were basically what are AI agents, right? But the difference is the AI agent can actually go back and forth and do stuff, right? You could actually machine learn and do stuff, but the API is basically a piece of code that you could put in to augment the way that you view the website. And so that's the reason why that's so important, is because if let's say this is person A, and person A has a low view of self. They're just like Dr. Crawford, or soon to be Dr. Crawford, was saying, this person has not had any individualized support, right? They don't even know this thing exists. You see what I'm saying? They're using this. This is the type of person, I'm not ragging on anybody, but I'm ragging on somebody that only views the website homepage. Which, the funny thing is, I think they said around 90% of people, when they go on a website, they only view that one page that they get on. They really don't click on any of the buttons. And so now they're saying, I don't know if y'all remember the websites in the past where they used to do the full scroll. Now that's where like the doom scrolling comes from, because that person is literally just scrolling that one page over and over again. They're not clicking on the tabs or buttons to go to another page. Now this person, let's say this person B, that person says, hey, not only am I going to click on the main page, but I'm going to click on one or two tabs, right? I'm at least going to click the buttons on that screen that I'm on, okay? And then you have this person who says, not only am I going to, and this person C, not only am I going to click the tabs on that screen, I'm going to maybe pull up and look at snippets of the code for that screen or whatnot, right? This is a highly technical person. And so the thing is, for people that are down here where they don't have that individualized support that says, hey, this is the best way that we can help you to teach you how to use this thing, right? They're going to be in trouble. And the reason why I probably sound more concerned than sounding alarm, I love how Crawford's always the optimistic one about education. He's like, yo, let's do it this way. And it's like super dope. For me, it's like, if this guy or gal or person is not paying attention in class, you're getting left behind. And now it's not you're getting left behind just a little bit. It's going to be leaps and bounds behind. So I'll end with that.
Beautiful point. Beautiful point. I love. Thank you so much, Professor. Earlier, the exponential, right? I think technology has really done that. It's made things exponentially greater. Sorry, I can't say. I'm like exponentially. All right. So it's made things exponentially greater. So to your point, Professor, I love that. A kid who's not paying attention, a kid who's not focused, their learning loss is not like a normal learning loss. It's exponentially greater. And yes, that is Festus. Festus is the signal the alarms. If you don't do this now, your kids are gonna be dumb droids. They're gonna be ruined. No. But it's definitely needed. Those conversations need to happen. So I can't talk today, guys. But either way, I love this topic. This was great. I remember watching a video not too long ago that said we have not experienced the real internet since 2016. Why not since 2016? Around 2016, I think to your point, Festus, I'm not sure if it was the API, but we were basically writing code that essentially replaced humans in a lot of different actions that we would be doing online, whether that would be going to certain websites, using things on our phone, certain apps. It's literally, I think you're right. To your point, Festus, I think it's these APIs that are literally just taking information and just creating its own language and just going back and forth. So I think these are definitely things that we need to be very, very aware of, especially for those of us in the education space working with young people. It seems like a very small thing now, but I see it now as people walk down the street being, just staying at home. I deal with it myself. We are not immune to the things that we talk about, all right? In our little group chat with the students, that was actually one of my goals, was just spend less time on my phone, spend more time working out, doing other things. So these are things that we really, really have to be aware of and cognizant of. So folks, that is going to be our episode for today. Please go out there, like and subscribe this video wherever you are hearing this. Like it, subscribe it. Do me a favor, if you could share it to one person, that'd be great. If you could share it to like 2 or 3, I'd love you. So I love you regardless, but I really love you if you shared it to 2 or 3 people. So go ahead and share that with anyone you think could use this, or maybe they want to come on, right? We have people coming on all the time talking about looking for advice, looking for help as far as their future, finding their purpose, finding a plan of action. You got great people here who want to help you out. So, as always, want to say thank you to the future Dr. Jamar Crawford. Want to say thank you to that guy, Daniel Clayton Hill, DCH, holla holla, Tullahoma's finest. And I want to say thank you to my good friend Festus Samoye. Festus, I'm Ole Sharonki. Festus, go ahead, give him the phrase of pace.
So listen, if you heard this and you like it, go ahead and hit that like button. Okay. If you know somebody who needs to hear this, hit the share button. So listen, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no excuse for not getting an education. We are going to see you on the next episode. All right, y'all. Be blessed.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS podcast.